Do you have an out for this, Callie?
I want you guys to know I have listened to that for fun on more than one occasion.
It's very bracing.
It's
like,
your
Alexa.
pick-me-up on the subway.
Oh my gosh, do you all hear that? A man's voice? We have a guest!
We have a guest. This is Scream Girls podcast, just for a baseline bit of information. I'm Kaitlin McKenzie.
I'm Callie Goff.
And this is...
Tom Saporito.
Tom Saporito, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Our
Very
first
excited.
guest and honorary Scream Girl. Callie, do you want to tell us a little bit, or Tom, about your horror cred?
I'll do
what
it.
You're doing here?
Tom is here because he is A, very funny and brilliant, and B, was recently in a horror movie called Found Footage 3D.
That's
I
right.
wanted us to say it at the same time.
Oh, I missed that in rehearsals.
Tell us about your movie, Tom.
Found Footage 3D is a horror film from the producer of all of the Texas Chainsaw Massacres, Kim Henkel, who's just a genius, and directed by Steven DeGennaro. And it's about the making of the first found footage film in 3D, which is a ludicrous concept, obviously. But the way they get around it is by having the behind-the-scenes footage of the making of the first found footage film in 3D, and while the crew is filming it, all the shit starts to go down for real, and then in turn you end up seeing the first found footage 3D film because you're watching the behind the scenes. And
it's a little like Blair Witchy in that way, in that it's the behind the scenes, but it's like the behind the scenes.
It's screamish in the way it comments on the genre, I think.
Yep.
It's one of the few things I've worked on that I really fucking love.
And it's awesome.
Yes, you're allowed to.
Yes, Tom, you may say fucking. I actually, I heard from my mom today that she's been listening to the podcast, and I was bracing myself for her to be like, I like it, but you say fuck every other word, because we do.
And did she?
Not yet, but
That's nice.
She's on episode 2, so we'll see what happens.
I preemptively apologized to my dad, but he seems to be taking it in stride, which is good.
So, Tom, where can people watch Found Footage 3D?
You can watch it on Shudder, which is the entire horror streaming service. It's like the Netflix of horror. I think you can get it on iTunes, possibly on Amazon. I'm not sure about that, but definitely on iTunes and Shudder. And if you're a fan of horror, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you are. Shudder is an amazing streaming service as well.
Great. Everybody should watch it. I saw it in the theaters. It's really good. It's really scary.
And you can watch it in 3D. You don't have to watch it in 3D. It's great even in 2D, but it's really beautiful in 3D because it's shot on 3D cameras and everything you see is in 3D. All you have to do is just pick up a pair of those red blue anaglyph glasses. You can get them on Amazon for like $1.50. Yeah.
So it's also a very special episode because we watched It Follows.
We did. A quick note on Pontypool, which we obviously did not watch for this week. I watched it, and then I told Callie not to watch it because I didn't think it would be fun to talk about. It's a lot about language and the ways that our culture changes the meaning of words, and there's a zombie virus that is infecting English, and it has a really old man who gets to make out with a really hot younger lady, and I was pissed, and I just didn't want to talk about it. And this is our podcast, so we're not talking about it. And that's all I have to say.
I like
about
that in movie all about words. You were like, not for a medium that's all about using your words. No.
Or for two people who make their profession as writers.
That's right. Yeah, right.
You're like, absolutely.
I have enough of that shit knocking around in my brain, okay?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it got good reviews. There are some interesting things about it, which you are free to unpack in your free time. We're not going to unpack them here.
So we went from that to just like a sex ghost.
Sex ghost. Much more our speed.
Yeah.
I was wondering what to call it in my notes. I was like, monster, ghost, spirit.
My boyfriend and I kept referring to it as a ghost.
Okay, they call it
kind of
something on
ghost,
Netflix
but...
that I feel like was pretty accurate. I'm going to look it up.
Oh.
Talk amongst
Entity?
yourselves.
Oh, entity would be good. That's kind of a catch-all.
Yeah, an entity that is good.
There's no indication.
If you see Found Footage 3D, it's a specter.
A specter. I don't know when I've seen a specter in a movie.
R-E, Spectra.
Spectre. Okay, guys, Netflix calls it a lethal curse. curse.
But a curse?
But it manifests into something.
Right, it's a personified curse.
Right.
It's got, like, agency, and I don't know about that.
All right. Well, they use the word tryst, which I like.
I like sex ghost. I'm
sex
really
ghost
a fan of
is,
sex
I think, the
ghost.
scientific term.
Yeah.
Sex ghost.
100%.
Hundo P.
Okay, that's where we're going with this.
Just running from a sex ghost. Well, walking quickly
Walking,
from a sex
briskly
ghost.
from a slow
But never
ghost.
choosing to fly.
Let's get into it.
Okay, let's start with our cold open, as we always do. We open in the burbs, in the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan. We sort of learn throughout it, my home state.
Oh, right on.
So I was excited to see this. Yeah. This representation. It's sort of like fallish, summerish feeling.
Yeah, well, okay. I took a note. We don't know,
Nude.
the season, really. I think it's supposed to be fall.
It feels fallish.
Yeah, like late summer, early fall.
Yeah.
'Cause she's swimming in a pool.
She's
and it's
swimming.
Michigan.
And wearing a coat later
Right.
on.
Well, I happened to glimpse at something online. I don't generally read reviews because I want to come in cold and just like have my opinion and then look at
Although
them.
they do lay on the beach.
They lay on the beach. I mean, I saw something that said the seasons make no sense.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, interesting.
And I think that was supposed to
Throw us
feed
off.
into sort of this dream-like,
Yep.
out of place, out of time, as does the Shell
The Shell,
Compact,
yeah.
which is like an e-reader compact thing. And
Yeah.
I was like, is that a real device? I don't believe
Okay.
it is.
Cold open.
Yeah.
Cold open. We open in these burbs. It's like dusk. There's this poor girl running through the streets in her high heels. I don't know why she had those high heels on.
I know. Well, okay,
She's
so
in her house.
So I've seen It Follows now about 6 times. I think I've made the mistake of overwatching it because, anyway, it wasn't as good to me as it has been in the past
Right.
this time around. But I did take note that there's, and I guess this should have occurred to me earlier on, but you know how things don't. Everything had a lot of sexual undertones to it. Like her outfit, she's basically wearing a teddy and sexy little shorts and like these sexy high heels. But
Yeah.
The girl who runs out in the beginning?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
right.
she's in a very
She's in a
sex-forward
nightie.
outfit.
Right. And then we hear her dad calling to her.
Yeah.
It's not as though she's been at a party or something.
Right.
No.
And she runs
No.
out in heels.
Yeah,
Right.
big heels.
You can hear him clomping.
Yeah.
Which
Simon was like, look at those.
I won't wear heels to a
I
wedding.
love her dad's
so-
just like, you good?
Yeah.
Honey? Annie?
And she steals a car and drives away. And I wrote, hides like a cat behind a deep freeze. Because when my cat died, she hid behind a deep freeze. She didn't want to see anybody when she was sick.
Oh, yeah, when they know, they
They
start
know,
hiding.
they know. And that's
My
kinda
cat
what-
did that.
That's what happened to Annie. She like
Yeah.
went and hid by the lake. She called her dad and told him she loved
Well, she
him.
also did the thing where like the lake was behind her.
Yeah.
And so she could see what was coming towards her because presumably nothing's coming from the lake
Right.
area.
Right.
So like if you know what I mean, like she could see nothing was coming from behind her. But yeah, she
Right.
was just letting herself.
She's given in.
She's given in.
And we cut away to the next morning. And I wrote, fuck that leg!
Oh, that leg.
Because
That
Leg.
leg's amazing.
fully bent backwards, just like a carrot stick.
Woo!
Not cute.
All right, good cold open. Am I right?
I would say so, yes.
Solid.
I was very engaged. Actually, a brief anecdote about this movie. This is the first time I've seen it in its entirety.
Huh.
Because, Callie knows this. The first time I tried to watch it, I was at like a lake house on vacation with my boyfriend at the time and his stepbrothers. And we, we'd been having a good time. I was not fully in my right mind, I will say. And I just couldn't handle this movie. I thought it was the scariest thing I'd ever seen.
Yep.
I was like, the premise of this is fucking me up. This is like the most brilliant metaphor for sexual assault that I've ever seen in my life. This is what I was thinking. I said, I have to go to the bathroom. And I went right to bed. And my boyfriend...
In the bathroom?
No. I just lied and said I was going to the bathroom. And instead I went to bed. And my boyfriend came in
You
45
Irish
minutes
exited
later.
in your own home.
Yeah, and he was like, are you okay? And he was also scared watching this movie. And I just disappeared,
You're like, you're sleeping on the couch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do not touch me,
Your
sex
couch.
ghost.
Sex ghost. He's like, I'm here. You're like, okay.
I saw it in the movie theater, and boy, did it scare the poop out of me.
It's a
I
spooky
watched
one.
the whole thing behind my scarf.
The
like,
first time I
wrapped
saw it was in
completely
the
my
movie
scarf.
theater, and asterisk with the director there, and he then did a talk back afterwards. And if I remember correctly, someone said, "Oh, it's obviously about STDs, right? It follows you, and you get it." And he says no,
no.
and he says no.
That's a very surface
It is a
read.
very
Yes.
surface thing. It's the first thing you think when you see it the first time, but it's really not about that.
Yeah,
No.
no.
I think it's about many things, which we can get into.
Yeah.
Sexual assault being one of them.
Sure.
In my addled brain, I don't think I was wrong about that, but...
Well, so we've gotten past the cold open, and then we meet, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Makey Monroe. Her name's Jay in the movie.
Jay.
But
Jay.
So I think she's very beautiful. I feel like I say
beautiful.
this every episode.
No, I wrote that down also. Sort of ethereal and kind of girl next door, but impossibly hot also, which is fun. She's going for a little swim. Oh, you don't see an above ground pool that much in movies.
Oh, nice.
It gave a very clear sense of kind of class, which I thought was interesting.
Well, I also thought that, to go back to the seasons thing, the year is totally ambiguous because their house has like old televisions all throughout it. Did you guys notice this?
And they're watching all the old movies.
Yeah, they're watching old movies. There's like an old TV next to the pool that she watches at one point.
The things they throw in the pool towards the end, jumping out is like a typewriter.
Yeah.
But then the friend is reading on that birth control compact.
April from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles compact.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I never could really get to the bottom of what that was about because I have read a lot about It Follows after seeing it because I liked it so much. And I think it is just that like made up dream, like this is not the real world essentially.
Right. It threw me off in a good way, which I guess was the point. Good job.
Well, and it was just a Kindle. I mean, she wasn't talking on it or texting on it. She was reading
like
the Iliad.
Dostoevsky. Yeah. Which, they sort of use that as a handy inserter of themes throughout. She's sort of reading lines
I just
from
like
the
fast
Idiot.
forwarded during this part.
What happens next? So she says hi to her friends, her sister and her friends are watching a movie. She says hi to Paul. It's very obvious that Paul's into her, this little guy
Paul from United States of Terra.
I have a lot of thoughts about Paul, which we'll get into. Yeah. And I bet if you've listened to any episodes of this podcast, you can bet what they are.
Caitlin not gonna like Paul.
No, Caitlin did not like Paul.
Yeah.
Woof. But we'll save him for later. She goes on her date with this guy she likes. He's kind of like jockey, not really for me, but he seems charming enough. They're playing a game at the movie theater, and
such an odd game.
It's such an odd game because it's so rude. It's just like, let me stare at everyone and then be like, her?
Yeah.
Is it her, the one I'm pointing at? Ma'am, you. Ma'am? You know what I mean? It's just so abrasively rude.
It's very aggressive people watching. But it's a game where you have to pick somebody in the crowd you'd want to trade places with, and then the person playing with you has to guess. So it's very like, it's also kind of bittersweet because he picks a little boy, and you know that there's some shit up with him if you've seen a trailer for this movie at this point.
Well, and it's also setting us up for the theme of like switching places. Like that person takes your place of next in line for the kill,
and like innocence.
He picked a, like who gets picked
virginal
why.
Little boy.
Yeah. So he picks somebody that she then can't see. He realizes she can't see, and he gets really creeped out, and he has to leave, and they go and have their date. And
which, like, also then having watched the rest of the movie, taking anyone to the movies seems like a terrible idea if you're being followed by it.
Right.
I think he thinks, and we'll get into this further, I think he thinks that, or he's passing it on to a lot of different people. That's what I think.
I actually have a question.
You can only pass it on to one person,
That's my question. Is it like you will pass it on to every single person you sleep with?
No.
There's only one of it.
The girl in the beginning was the last girl he gave it to.
Yeah.
She dies.
Right.
So he doesn't realize that. I think he probably assumed she slept with someone else. Maybe she was that girl, you know.
So he was on what he presumably thought was a nice date with Jay.
And had a good safe streak going.
Right. Oh, that
time-wise,
sucks.
yeah.
And then he had to, like, you or me, girl.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he was totally just courting her in order to sleep with
Well,
her.
I thought that too, but then I was like, that's not an efficient way to get rid of the thing.
No.
To have to date a girl for a few weeks.
No.
Yeah, there's much quicker.
You need to find a slut.
Sex worker.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Grinder.
So that's another Well, I had a question about this. We only see hetero transmission. Like, can a lesbian give this to another lesbian? This is what I was wondering.
What dictates the moment? Is it just, could a hand job do it?
Right. Is it penetration?
Is it penetration? Is it penetration? Couldn't say on. Penetration. Right. Could a lesbian? Yeah. Right.
Because I
could
think
a lesbian?
Could a lesbian?
I mean, this is like a very heteronormative sex ghost potentially.
Yes.
But I don't know. So
it's actually commentary on how lesbians are like superior and like they're safe from all of this. No lies detected.
That would be amazing. the friend reading the Idiot or the Iliad or whatever she's reading is the
Idiot.
only one who survives.
Yeah. I like because she's reading the Idiot, she's a lesbian.
She also has really hip glasses. So
Yeah. You know,
We'll
vibes.
Vibes.
And her name is Yara. Okay, so that's actually adding another layer of kind of sadness to it that I didn't pick up on the first time. That he might have just actually
That
liked
he might
her.
have liked her, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I really think so.
That's a bummer. And then he has
Although
to just...
he moved... This might
He
be a
lied
slight...
to her the whole time about
Yeah,
where
that's
he lived,
true.
his name.
He
She didn't even know
changed his name and rented out a house. But I guess he wasn't that far. They found the yearbook.
Right, he lived nearby under a
and also
different
he
name.
still lived with his parents.
Maybe it was a just-in-case thing? I don't know. They all lived with their parents. I guess she was in college, right?
Maybe
Yeah,
anytime he dates a girl, he has to give her a fake name, which sucks.
Yeah.
Living in fear.
Yeah, that would
Probably
suck.
because these girls are also, I mean, that's the other thing. People are, like, ending up dead, right? Presumably a
Right.
lot of people in this very fucked up leg bent back like a carrot stick sort of way. And, like...
There's a lot to sort of dig into here with this particular being. What happens next?
Well, first of all, while they're on their date,
Yeah.
they're sitting in the restaurant and it sort of zooms in on Jay and then you see behind her, like what's in the background comes into focus and it's someone just walking slowly and you never see if they arrive.
Wait, this is when
or...
they're in the...
This is
In the
when they're at
restaurant.
the restaurant after they've left the movie theater.
Oh, yes.
And it basically is just that very first moment where there is someone walking slowly in the background.
Out of focus a little bit.
You don't know if it's what's following or if it's just someone walking like a normal person. And I feel like that's what's one of the great things about this movie is it's such a... There's something so simple about this creature, and it just looks like a person.
Everyone becomes a threat. Like in that moment later when he, there's just a random girl walking by them, and he's like, "Do you guys see that girl?"
Yeah.
And I was really freaked out too. I was like, "Somebody look at that girl!" You know.
Well, and we'll jump ahead, but that's also why I think Jay and Paul's plan was pretty misguided. Yes. Whatever it was. I'm not sure what the plan was.
We'll get into fucking Paul's plan in a little while.
Fucking Paul.
Fucking Paul.
Well, then they go on their second date.
They go on their second date and they bone.
And I said in my notes, he goes through a lot of trouble to pass it on to her.
So at that point, the plan was at that point, he was trying. Yes. It was no longer a date.
Because he had that chloroform ready.
It's weird, though, that it was, like, sweet to a degree. Like, he didn't just assault her. He did, obviously, but it was like, they had a moment, they went to the car. It was her idea to go back to the car.
Yeah.
Like, it was an odd thing that he was somehow romantic about his sexual assault.
He seems to have some kind of moral code about it to justify what he's doing here, which is iffy. But it does become a sexual assault because after they fuck, he chloroforms her in a very upsetting... This is actually what upset me so much when I first tried to watch it and couldn't make it through, and I was able to handle it this time around. But because it was just... It was such a real... scene, it was like suddenly through her perspective we're in a totally different movie because this is just this psycho who's like tying her up in the scariest parking garage, abandoned parking garage.
Oh my God,
under a bridge somewhere, I think.
Saying insane shit to her about some being that's gonna follow her and she can't outrun it, and so this to me is in some ways the scariest part of the movie, or the most disturbing part of the movie.
Well, and speaking of that, I mean, it's kind of a perfect little monologue that he gives that sets up the rules for the whole movie, which is this thing, it's going to follow you. Somebody gave it to me and I passed it to you back in the car. It can look like someone you know or a stranger in a crowd. I wrote crown, but I think that's crowd.
I think probably.
Whatever helps it get close to you. There's only one of it. I think sometimes it looks like people you love just to hurt you.
Just to hurt you, right.
Yeah, and he says, sleep with someone, pass it along. So it basically just gives you all of the rules of this sex ghost.
And I don't know if it's right then or a minute after, but he says, it's slow, but it's not dumb.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Never go in a room with only one exit.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that what he says? Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't remember that. Never go in a room with only one exit.
Which then why would you at the movie theaters, brother?
Multiple exits.
But,
Multiple exits.
Oh, that's true. I guess they could have just gone right out through the front.
You always have to know where your nearest exit is. Yeah. That's why. That's what theaters are saying. It's because of this. They're like, in case there's a sex ghost.
If there's a sex ghost.
No, you're closest exit.
It might be behind you.
It's almost certainly behind you.
Please turn off your cell phones.
I mean, so then this woman starts walking towards her. This
naked lady.
Yeah, naked. And
Old
the
grandmother
nudity
woman.
is so creepy. No.
So
This is when they're still in the parking garage or whatever the fuck they're in.
Oh, right. The young
I wrote
brunette.
that too.
Yeah.
The nudity is really used to scary effect in this
It's
movie.
almost like
it's very threatening.
The Shining. That old woman.
I thought of that
too.
It's
Yes,
very
you're totally
sort of a
right.
decaying, like
Yeah.
kind of hot, but also
and
very
only
scary.
like a little bit of the nipple. Only
Yeah.
it's like sort of naked at times.
Death nip.
And you can kind of see bush in the back.
All bush.
All bush much.
I mean, that was another, like, what year is this?
Right. So, yeah.
Like, Bush is either back or it hasn't left yet. We're not sure.
Yeah. I mean, they're looking at porn magazines, so.
Good point.
Yeah, then
so the date happens.
Yeah,
the
he
date
drops
rape
her off
happens.
in the street, which is crazy. Like,
Yeah,
a
he
little
couldn't even give
lingerie
her her
set.
fucking clothes back.
Yeah, fucked up.
That part was
And I was
upsetting.
just like, what a messed up thing to have to explain to your family. Like, she has to go in and be like, we had sex, and then he told me
And she
this
does.
sex thing is gonna follow me.
Yeah.
Because then they're
her
like, it's
mom's
so
like,
messed
the
up, the
things he
things
said
he
to her.
said.
Yeah.
I know, that would be so hard to tell your mom. God. But luckily she has a very supportive sister.
That's right.
Yeah.
Kelly.
And we just learn a few things. Like, we learn that, well, the neighbor said those people are such a mess, which is a nice little detail of, like, their family is a little shambly. And then she goes to class. And I love this
It's so
part.
good. Yeah.
She's in class. She looks out the window, and there's an old woman in a hospital gown.
Well, the first you see it real far, and it's
Yeah,
a great
very
film moment of
far.
like you just see it, and everybody's eye will catch it, but it's
Yeah.
real far, and you're like, I know I saw someone. They're walking towards. It's
Yeah.
real, you know.
Because she's just in white.
And she's coming from the wall.
Yeah.
She's walking directly like she was standing against the wall and
Yeah.
walk towards, which is a great thing.
It's
So
very
creepy.
unnatural.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and old Jay listens to her gut and gets up and walks out. Which is...
Excuse me, the teacher.
Yeah, I actually was like,
Excuse
no college
me.
professor gives a shit if you
Is
leave
it
their
college?
lecture. I think
It
it is
is,
because
yeah.
she said later something about when we were in high school.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah, I think it's
so
community college.
She gets freaked
Got
out.
it.
This like old lady's just following her, and she gets away because it's walking very slowly. And she goes to the ice cream shop where her sister and fucking Paul work. You know, she's like, Hugh said something. Hugh is the guy, the original
Right.
guy.
Hugh.
What a
That was
dumb
his
fake
name.
name.
Yeah.
His favorite
Oh,
movie
it all
is
makes
Love,
sense now.
actually.
Yeah.
Hugh.
Predator.
Definitely.
Death pred.
But anyway, so she's like split. She's sad, and fucking Paul. Well, I'll stay at your house and sleep on your couch and protect you. Like, what are you gonna do, Paul?
Yeah.
Paul.
Really?
Oh, Paul. Okay.
Paul.
But he does.
You can't do shit, Paul.
He does. No, but he does.
Wrap
and
yourself in a little Afghan and
It's
sit
just
in your
gross.
PJs.
I'll start to get into why Paul didn't sit with me. It's very clear from the beginning that he is only concerned with helping her because he likes her.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
he literally says at one point, I liked you too.
Yeah.
I
He
liked
makes
you
it
just as much as Greg did.
all about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like your friend, your childhood friend, has been sexually assaulted, is like, seems to be hallucinating some kind of ghost chasing her. Then you find out is actually being chased by a ghost. And the whole time it's just about his boner to me.
Right.
Like,
Yes.
I couldn't get behind Paul. It was very like nice guy TM is how I felt about Paul. Like,
Nice guy TM. Oh, TM.
yeah,
trademark.
like
Yeah.
I'm such a nice guy, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if I'm getting friend zoned. Like
Ugh,
that was
now
my
I
vibe
hate
from
Paul.
Paul. That was my vibe from him the whole time. I thought he was so gross. But they have like a little chat. We find out that he was her first kiss. They've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
It's the middle of the night.
They found those porn magazines. They talk about that. There's just like
Yeah.
sex talk throughout.
Yeah, it's
Sex
all very
talk.
sexy. I mean, they're all really young and still living at home. They're all like kids.
They're like
but
first year out
they're-
of college, it seems. Or no, in
Yeah.
college. They're in junior college or community college,
Yeah.
it seems.
Yeah,
Because it's very
yeah.
local.
Yeah.
And they're all sort of trapped at home in their
Yes.
like childhood
Also, like,
place that they're too big
it-
for.
It took me watching this because I was like, is she in college? I haven't really figured that out yet. And the thing that I feel like clued me in is the neighbor says to her something like, so what's it like now that everyone's gone? And
Who,
she
Greg
was
says
like,
that?
yeah, and she was like, it's kind of lonely. And he's like,
Now that
I'm right
everyone's
across the street.
gone.
Like now that everyone's gone away. And it's like now that all her friends have gone away to
Right,
school,
right.
I think. Like have gone away to college and she's still there.
Maybe It Follows me. It references her like bad grades in high school.
Well, or
You
just
know,
like
It follows.
It follows
et
on that
cetera.
permanent
Her
wreck.
life.
Permanent wreck.
I mean, one thing that is interesting is there is this vibe, and this is a very John Carpenter thing, which I think this movie owes a lot to him. but especially with that synth music,
Right.
of like the weirdness of the Burbs. There's a moment where her mom is talking to a friend and says, it breaks my heart the things he said to her, they were so sick and weird. And as she's saying sick and weird, there's a close-up on like an awkward family photo.
Yeah.
Right.
And then there's a line at the end where they're sort of walking out of the suburbs into Detroit proper.
Yes.
And they're talking about how their mom never would let them go. There's something being said here about
The fucked upness of the Burbs.
yeah, and how it feels like a safe place, but it's not.
Exactly, like the false sense of security in the Burbs.
Well, and also like there's the dynamic of when the guy's like, oh, they've got so many issues, like the shitty back talk, like talking gossip of the neighbors, and like it appears very nice, but they're also kind of a bunch of assholes as well.
Her little neighbors are looking through the window at her while she's in the bathroom. There's all kinds of badness happening.
Yeah.
Or no, when she's in the pool.
Yeah, but also in the bathroom. When she's like
in her underwear, there's a neighbor up there looking in.
Oh, I
His
don't
ball
know if I
hits
caught that.
the thing and
I thought that was
the ghost
or something, because then they throw a rock through the window, like that was never explained. The ball just sat there. I didn't see someone.
I think a friend threw the ball up at the other friend or something like that.
The ghost has one moment of like, I should play.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say the ghost peers in and he's like,
fun anymore.
She looks nice. I'll come back. She's in the middle of looking at her own vagina. I'll come back.
That was so sad.
I know.
That was really
and I loved all her little underwear.
She's having a hard time with what has happened to her, and then like she doesn't even know the half of it yet.
Ugh.
Okay, so the window breaks while she's talking to Paul. This is where it gets scary as fuck. He runs away to wake up the sister, and she sees the ghost again.
Yes, and the ghost is a girl with her boobs out and her hands like tied behind her back.
Oh,
or
were
something.
they? Oh.
Yeah, her hands are behind her
She
back.
looks beat up.
She looks like she's been assaulted.
Yeah.
She's peeing, which makes me
peeing
also
so
think like something bad has happened to her.
Yeah.
And it's just fucked up imagery.
It's so
really
gross, and weird,
no
and
control.
it's in slow motion, and
it's embarrassing. Like, there's a lot about that. Like, the nudity, too. It feels embarrassing. You're like, no, that's wrong.
And it feels like you don't
that.
get right. There's a shame in body. There's a shame in, I'm peeing myself. I'm in heels in a nightie about to jump in a car. It's just very shameful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is actually, that's really interesting that you said that, because
Thank you.
In the, you can go now, Tom.
Yeah, that's
all we needed.
That's all.
So, no, because later on, so after this, Jay runs, well, I don't want to skip ahead too much. Jay hides in her bedroom. They open the door to let Yara in, and an old, creepy man starts walking in. Jay freaks out. She goes running from the house. I was like, yes, bitch, run. She, jumps off her roof, basically, and goes running from the house. And she runs to a park, and that's when we meet Greg. He comes. He's going to help. He's going to get his car. He's going to help them.
Right. Greg, by the way, is her kind of hot neighbor.
Kind of hot neighbor. And
who, gets it early on. Who, gets it somehow.
Well, he, doesn't believe it, but he's
willing to be a friend.
Well, he wants to fuck her.
He wants to fuck her.
Well, that's another nice guy thing. He wants to fuck her.
Yeah,
so
he's also a piece of shit. Let's be real.
But his motives are, just a little less under the surface than Paul's, which is just,
Right, the most direct motives are the sex ghost. That was the most noble motive somehow.
It's true.
He was gonna fuck ya, gonna fuck ya up.
And Callie and Yara, who don't get much play, but they're there just being good friends.
Yeah, they are really just consistently solid friends.
Yeah, because they're not guided by their boner. Because lesbians are above it all.
Callie and Yara.
We're assuming.
Lesbians.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but this is what reminded me of that, the shame thing. Mm-hmm. So then they're like, okay, we got to go find him. Jay's like, I don't want to go home. Let's just go find Hugh. And they get in the car, and I was like, now, here's where I could have never done this, because I cannot spontaneously go out in my pajamas without a brassiere. No. I'd be the sex ghost. People would be like, run from her.
And here's what also killed me. Here's what we know about Hugh. He used a fake name.
Yeah.
He rented an apartment nearby and disappeared completely. Let's get in our car and go find him.
I know.
Let's just go find him. Well,
she had his address, right?
She did have his address.
Of the bullshit thing, which I assumed was just a vacant thing, which it was.
Yeah. But I guess he'd been staying there.
I guess so, because he had a yearbook.
There was a nasty serial killer.
He had a photo where he was wearing a jacket.
And they saw the Letterman jacket, right?
Yeah.
And in that photo is the girl from the cold open.
Oh.
Is that who that is?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I missed that. Good catch.
That sucks.
I mean, it took me 6 times.
So
So
they were
he
like a
gave it to
couple.
like
I
his
think so.
GF
Yeah.
after having evidently cheated on her with whoever.
So
think
that's
so.
the thing. So he cheated on her and then gave it to her.
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe they like just hooked up after having
Or
broken
yeah.
up.
So then the real survivor here is whoever he cheated on his girlfriend with.
Yeah, she's like, suck it!
Yeah.
Nobody could see the bird that I just
like, yeah. She's like, now Paul's got it, bitch. Like,
And his girlfriend and the girl
man.
Paul gave it to.
yeah,
Oh,
totally.
man.
But so yeah, them running around in their PJs, I was like, good for you.
Yeah.
Because I would be. I mean, I dream about that sometimes. That I
Not naked.
No.
Dream about being in your PJs.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
LeBron, and I'm like,
That's
this is
great.
mortifying. So
wait, I
yeah.
have one more thing to say about shame before I forget about it, which is that I was thinking about how this movie plays with the idea that the virgin is the one who lives always.
Huh.
And I mean, that's very much sort of what's happening here as well. You can't be a virgin and get this, but it's just sort of an interesting unpacking of that trope, like
Sure.
taking it to a farther extreme.
That's right.
Speaking of that, do you think Kelly and Yara will ever have sex? Not with each other, just like in general, because I wouldn't.
Oh my god.
No. Well, I would want to know the rules of it. Like, what's allowed?
You have to finish.
Like, can we do some over the clothes action?
If you
You
wear
have to
if
finish.
you wear a condom.
No, I think
No, because I hope she didn't have sex with that guy without a condom. But maybe.
it was the 70s or 80s or 90s or 2000s. Things were different then and here and
Or
now.
3,000.
and
But they
from-
waited
and-
till their
yeah.
like fifth date or whatever to have sex. I mean, I would think she seems cautious.
So you think she did wear a condom?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't
But
think
I
it
don't
matters.
know.
I don't think it matters. Well,
It
and
does.
that's
I don't think it
a
matters
point
either.
against the STD
It's about
thing.
the connection.
I mean, the STD thing is obviously an element that you can take from it, but that's an argument against it. Is that like the condom didn't do shit?
Yeah.
Right.
You still got sex ghost.
So I wonder if that means that the lesbians could pass it on, because maybe it's
Yeah, I think
about
they
like
could.
the emotional experience of having sex more than anything else.
But each of them, for what it's worth, finishes. They do. I'm just saying. They all
Yeah.
finish. It's not just like you can't just stick it in. And
Well, we
leave.
don't know if she
We don't
finishes.
know if the woman does.
It doesn't matter.
I thought about that. I was like, I hope
But
she at
they-
least had a good time.
I hope she at least enjoyed.
I hope he at least
No,
took care of
I
her.
hope he at
don't
least
think-
like.
I don't
there was
think so, you
foreplay.
guys.
Yeah.
Guys, it was extremely quiet every time she had sex. They had sex.
Well, later,
Oh, yeah,
when
she
she's
did
having
enjoy
sex,
it.
she's not into it because she's like, it's just a survival thing. But the first time, I hope that he helps her, but it didn't seem likely because they were
No.
just fucking in a car.
And
oh,
it's
also
great
the
when
car,
he-
like parking, the lover's lane thing, another horror movie trope.
But
like,
also
kids in the...
right in the spotlight, just like right. My boyfriend said that he was like, I would never do this under a spotlight.
He's like, I gotta see if Sex Ghost comes around. Like,
Yeah.
I gotta see it in the light.
It sucks too. Right when he finishes, he disconnects immediately, and it's not just like I'm done. It was like,
And gotta
and-
get that chloroform.
and now I go get that chloroform.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's sad.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
you
she's
watch
like
it
telling
in
that
his
wistful
eyes.
story
I know.
about
And he, like, turns
also
away.
about like being
Yeah.
trapped in the burbs, kind of that story.
yeah.
Now that we're
I
grown,
used
where
to
the hell do we
dream-
go?
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was nice. And her
Okay.
red nail polish. Okay, so where are we at now? They are going after Hugh. They go to his like flop house basically, and and fucking Paul finds some porn, and of course takes the time to sit and
Flipping
flip through
through
the
it.
porn.
Flip through his
Of
1970s
course.
mag porn.
And then the friend Yara is standing on the counter, and Greg stops to like check out her bod.
I know. Ugh.
Oh,
Like, it was
right.
all just like these little
Right.
moments of like, oh, sex is, but also that's kind of a thing, especially for kids this age. Sex is always on your mind. Like, it is
Yeah.
always prevalent, you know?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's just kids this age. I think that's all.
Well, that does what this page of notes is used to. I'm kidding.
Kids in
No, I keep being
2018.
like, can't wait for my mom to listen to this
I
episode.
know, me too. I might have
Yeah.
to tell my parents to skip it.
Skip.
But anyway, Pervy Paul finds the porn, and there's a picture,
Paul
and they are
finds
able.
the
It's a
porn.
picture with a Letterman. Say
Sounds like
that
a-
5 times
Sounds
fast.
like a children's
That's
book.
Pervy Paul finds the porn.
You can use that for your next warm up
Yeah,
exercise
yeah.
for your audition.
Paul
Tom.
Finds the porn. Pervy Paul finds the porn.
But he does, and they find this clue, and they go to this high school, and they find out that this guy's real name is whatever it is, Jeff. I feel like it's Jeff.
Yeah. I
Anyway.
kept thinking Luke, but that's not right.
No, because we've met a million Lukes in the movies. That
Oh,
we've
that's
done so
why,
far.
that's why,
There's been a
yes.
Luke in almost every movie.
Okay.
So they go to his house.
Well, while they're at the school,
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite shots, they're talking to the lady in the office who's just freely giving them information about student, which that doesn't seem like her job, or that seems like the opposite. Legal. Like she should be pushing the button under the counter, like Mayday, Mayday. But she's just like pointing him out in the yearbook, and the camera does a 360, and it does it like twice, and there's someone walking towards the building, and the second time
I wish they did a third turn when it was real close.
Yeah.
It would have been a nice moment, but it's good.
It's good.
So they get his name, they go to his house, they talk some more. I mean, I don't even know.
They talk to his mom briefly. They meet the family.
Yeah, they meet the mom. I don't really...
She's like, do all your friends want to come in? And I was like, my mom would have been like, what kind of
Who
gang?
the fuck are these?
Like, get out of here. I don't have Jimmy Chungus for all of you. Like,
I mean,
I would have been in so much trouble. If kids showed up at my door,
Nancy would have had a fit.
More than 2 kids, my mom would have been like, I don't have chips. I'm not like, I have work to do. Maggie's got to go out. Like, I don't have time for this. Even if they were like unannounced, I did not know kids were coming over. Did you guys have that experience?
No, nobody ever came to my house. None of us had cars, and my friends had cars. Yeah.
Tom?
I don't know. I feel like we had such a neighborhood. It was like a cliche neighborhood that we were like, all the kids were coming over to play with each other at their house. You just go up and knock and surprise, without calling. It's very much Norman Rockwellian.
I guess that was when I was little, but when I was a teenager, because it was usually boys, and boys weren't allowed like in the house behind closed doors because of sex ghosts.
Because of sex
Nancy
ghosts.
knew.
I want you to have a leg turn out like a carrot.
Me.
Yeah.
I want you to get carrot leg.
Don't have sex because you will get carrot leg. And
No, I just said
all right. Well, this scene, in my opinion, not wholly necessary because all they really find out is you could drive far away because it walks slowly.
Yeah.
We don't really
is this what he says? It's slow, not dumb?
No, he said that before, but he tells her, like, it's really slow, so if you drive far enough away, you can buy you some
He says wherever you are, it is somewhere walking right towards you, but it's walking. Yeah. So, like, you can go.
This is then immediately when I said, can they fly somewhere? And I guess I'm getting too literal and realistic, but, like, could they fly somewhere?
I think they could. I probably think they just don't have money.
And so then does the thing walk through the water, or does it get on the plane and no one knows it's on the plane? It's just standing there awkwardly, like in the back of the plane.
Does it live in Michigan? Is that like, is it like the Jersey Devil? Like,
good question.
Can they just move?
Can they go past the border?
Yeah.
It flows. It's about Flint, Michigan water.
Oh, no. Can we get Michael Moore on the phone?
Can we get Michael Moore? That's the sequel. It flows.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
Well, okay, I liked this scene because I actually think that Hugh does a lot of work for us again, like because he also tells us even though it's following you, I can still see it.
That's
which,
true.
Like,
That's
we
a
need
good
to
point.
know that.
Right. That does.
I mean, it's an upsetting scene too because she's essentially having to like sit cross-legged in the grass with her rapist.
Yeah, that is a weird confrontation moment. It's very calm. It's very.
She's very dissociated. She's not looking.
And is that
at him.
Is this like a thing of like having to be near the guys who are shitbags to you? Is this
I don't know. I mean, I've never had to be near someone who has been a shitbag to me to that extent.
Sure, yeah, to that extent. Right.
And I think it's a unique situation because she needs something from him. But I feel that it felt authentic to me.
Yeah, it did. It really did.
Yeah. And he basically tells her, you're a girl and you're hot. You should just fuck someone.
Yeah, which also brought me back to that, like, he did have to court her, kind of. He was basically saying, it's easy for you, anyone will have sex with you. Meanwhile, Hugh's got to,
put some effort in.
The movies to play that
dumb
He's
game.
like sort of a
play that
gentleman
rude-ass game.
I don't know. So they drive. They decide to go up to Greg. Semi-hot Greg's cabin, lake house. Oh, right. And which is nice of him to take them up there, I guess.
Yeah. And again, he makes a comment about, is it there where he's like, oh, would my mom even know?
Yeah, she won't even notice.
She won't even notice.
Which I also thought was a thing, though. That's like absent parents.
Middle America suburb commentary again that you were talking about earlier.
And they refuse to tell, like, Jay is very adamant throughout, like, I'm not going to tell her mom about this, even though her sister keeps being like, you should tell mom. It's weird. It's kind of like scrappy gang of kids in the tradition of, like, It,
right.
But they're all young adults.
Yep. Also, do we know that her dad died? Like,
well,
we don't know where her dad is.
Well, he's in the picture, and then he's on the roof.
Right. We see him as
the
ghost.
At least he's some sort of something.
He's gone in some way.
But the creature also pretends to be Yara at one point. So you don't have to be dead for the creature to be you.
But the mom also, like, just going back to this absent parent thing, there's very pointed scenes where it's like a empty bottle of wine on her dresser.
Oh,
you know, and like
oh,
the
yeah.
mom is just sort of, you know, not, you know, fully involved or whatever.
And the dad is, well, and we know they're a mess, so presumably like some
Sure.
drama has gone down, whatever that would be. So they get to the cabin. It seems like a fun little vacay.
Fuck yeah.
Cabin, much like the one I was in when I couldn't watch this
Oh,
movie.
man.
And they, I guess they're in a great lake swimming around. Oh, this is where we learned some important information actually about Greg and her, kind of, because he's teaching her how to shoot. Which I guess they think that a gun will help against a sex ghost.
Against an entity.
Right, a mystery sex entity.
Curse.
But he says to her, like, I'm right across the street. And she's like, yeah, I remember. She's kind of bitchy in a good way. And he's like, yeah, I guess I should have been nicer to you. So we get a sense that they have some kind of fraught history. And then we see the ghost again.
Love this.
Every time I see the ghost, it's a great moment. Like, it's always a well-delivered, well-directed moment every time it happens. From whether it's far away or close up, I love it.
So, first of all, Jay, sitting in the wrong direction. She's looking out towards the water, and I was like, girlfriend, turn around.
Oh, right.
You cannot see what is coming behind you. But we see Yara walking towards them. And we hear splashing in the water, but I just thought, oh, it's just the water lapping against the shore. And then Yara starts swimming by in her little inner tube and her swim team swimsuit and goes, you guys should get in the water. And so now we know that Yara behind Jay is not Yara. And grabs her by the hair.
So here's a problem I have. Hugh says when he first kidnaps her and they're under the overpass, he says, and whatever you do, don't let it touch you. It touches her hair, and it claws fuckery Paul. Or does it either claws him or
it just shoves
gives him a good swipe? But then
he lifts it up. He's got claw marks. But either way, it touches her.
Yeah,
and there's no real ramifications. It doesn't seem.
Well, it touches
I thought
her
that
hair.
the second I touch you.
Right,
You know?
I was thinking that too. But maybe he just meant don't let it get close enough to fuck with you.
I guess.
But I thought that too. Well, and then I thought, well, it just has her hair, which is like a dead part of your body. Like I could touch pull on my hair and not feel it.
Wig culture, because it just would have snatched it.
Yeah,
She would have been like, oh, my wig.
Cut to Katy Perry. Wig snatched. All right, Katy. All right.
Yeah, I know. I had a minor problem with that too, but I'm willing to go with.
I'm willing to move past it.
But here's where we learn an important thing about the monster, which is that it is corporeal to a degree.
That's
like it can touch other people.
A gun will affect it, and it will affect you. It hits Paul, who's not someone who has been affected by it yet. Right. It can affect third parties. It blows out the door.
Yes, it can do stuff. And apparently it did break the window.
How do you feel about that, Cal? Cal, how do you feel about
You'll notice I fell silent in that part of the conversation.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd move right past
this is important vocabulary from my career as a ghost hunter that I'm now incorporating.
Thanks, Pontypool.
Oh, Lord. Look, I think you'll forgive me for any big words I use if you watch Pontypool and see what I saved you from.
Not today.
Guys, you have a guest.
Sex. Yeah, there's company. Want some cake?
Okay, so they run away. They run into like a shed.
It's a good scene.
It's a good scene. It's very scary.
It always does kill me in the typical trope way of like, don't go into a closed area, don't run upstairs, don't. But like, you always have to move past it. It's fine.
Yeah. And then it has an exit. She goes out because it has like a garage door.
Right.
She runs away, gets in a car. It turns from Yara into the big scary man again, and then into like a little.
Oh, the big scary man is so fucking scary.
He's too tall.
He's so
much too tall.
Too tall.
Yeah.
And the little boy, again, I've only noticed this because I've watched it so many times, is the neighbor.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Oh, the peeping Tom?
The creepy, pervy neighbor
fuck
boy.
that little boy also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, fuck all the dudes in this movie.
Fuck all the dudes in this movie.
But she runs away, she gets into Greg's car, and then immediately wrecks it because she's freaked out, and she winds up in the hospital. A lot of hospital scenes.
Also, though, I was like, it doesn't always follow the same rules. It does not follow the same rules throughout because she sits in that car, presumably knocked out, and it's not that far away, walking towards her. It doesn't reach her.
I think it's fucking with her a little bit, probably. It's like, I'll be back. They're in this weird, like, old-timey looking hospital.
Yes, with old school nurse outfits with, like, the white hats.
They're fucking with, it doesn't matter what year, I think.
It also feels very...
They want us to be having this conversation.
Very old horror movie, very Friday the 13th, very Halloween 2. Yeah, we've seen a lot of hospital scenes actually in the movies we've done so far for this podcast. Hospitals are a scary place, and they're a vulnerable place because people don't believe you and shit's going on, and you're like sick and you're in bed. She's broken her wrist.
Has the thing.
Yeah, she has like a little head injury. All her friends are like asleep in chairs around her. I was like, good friends.
A little irresponsible of them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, good for them to be there, but also like, wake the fuck up.
Yeah, wake up, there's a ghost. But they can't see it, so they can't even tell.
Fair. Take a nap.
It's coming. Yeah, gotta rest up. They're running on very empty because like they haven't slept for a few days. They've been just like driving around. But Greg wakes up, pops his old eyes open, and it's on. They go down in the hospital. And it appears to be big windows.
And the mom's not there.
And
yeah, where's the mom at?
And don't they show it by like panning across a couple randos checking into the hospital, like doing their paperwork?
Yeah.
And the camera just keeps turning and the door's like open. He's like, I'll get under the sheet.
I know.
Yeah. And they have what to me is a very upsetting sex scene where she's just sort of like lying there like dead
eyes.
And
dead eyes.
But he's still doing sex. Like, it's not just it's not like, I'm just doing it for the purpose of finishing. He's like trying to put his good moves into it.
Yeah,
He's like,
kissing her neck.
He's kissing her neck. He's like still
overly sensual.
Overly sensual
for the occasion.
For the occasion.
Also, I'm gonna guess that she did not finish in that case.
I'm certain she did not.
To Tom's point, does not matter.
I don't think she finished.
Doesn't matter.
But no, joking aside that it doesn't matter, like, that is a commentary. I don't think she finishes any time throughout the movie, and it's just like this fucked up patriarchal bullshit of the guy finishes
doing
doing sex on her.
If he didn't finish, would the ghost still have come?
I do think that seems to be a case, is like they finish sex.
Right.
The male finishes sex.
According to the patriarchal heteronormative rules of sex.
That's not a small factor of this. It's patriarchal heteronormative approach to sex.
Totally.
Interesting.
Ugh.
Well, speaking of, then we see Paul, and he's like looking in because Greg and Jay are having like a tender moment the next day where he's like touching her little fingers in her cast. And Paul looks in, and I literally was like, ooh, what if this just took a turn and Paul is like a serial killer?
Right, the ghost
I wouldn't be shocked at all. But I was like, why is it about Paul's boner right now?
Yeah, he just ends up like tweaking and killing them all and being like...
And the ghost is like, what the fuck? This was my weekend.
Now I gotta go hang out with you again?
I'm so sick of you. Yeah. He can't make it stick. Okay, and I also just have to say, at this point, Greg doesn't believe in the ghost. No. So he is taking advantage of a girl who is like traumatized. No, because he even says later he comes back and they're like, do you not believe it's real? He's like, I think that she believes something happened.
But they're like, something fucked up the door. And he's like, oh, it's that weird Scully thing of like, she sees all this shit happening. She's like, all right, Mulder.
Such a Scully. But a rapey Scully.
But a rapey Scully.
Because if it's not real, then she's crazy or traumatized, and he's like taking advantage of that to fuck her.
Yeah.
Which is really
it makes him even worse. If he doesn't believe it, then he's even fucking worse.
He's way worse.
Yeah, but maybe he thinks it'll just make her feel better.
I'm sure.
Patriarchal.
I just want to make you feel better.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna share this note with you guys because I guess I don't know why. I said it's kind of romantic or chivalrous, or men just really like having sex.
I would go with option C.
I'd go option C.
Okay.
But I like that you gave Greg the benefit of
the
doubt.
especially after what you just said. Like,
he
doesn't believe her, so it's super fucking fucked up.
Yeah, it's gross.
Sorry, Nancy.
Sorry, Nancy.
Sorry,
and Scott.
And Scott.
Anyway, so we have this, and then she's like all depressed and stuff, and she's presumably very guilty because she has selfishly passed this thing along, she believes, but nothing seems to be happening with Greg.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got her looking out the window one fine night, one fine Michigan Eve, and who does she see but a random man in pajamas and bare feet walking down the sidewalk?
No, it's Greg.
That was Greg?
Yeah, because then she's like, tap, tap, tap. And he doesn't respond. She's like, tap, tap, tap.
That was Greg?
And then she sees him walk up to his own window and throw the rock through.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, and then he does that smooth little dive in.
I thought that was just a man. But that's worse.
Greg
that's
and
actually,
Long Johns.
It makes a lot more sense. Why Long Johns?
Because they're
Greg,
weird.
John, so...
Lon.
So... It's Lon Chaney.
The tall guy. Because I think they're weird.
Yeah.
And, like, gross.
This is one of the only parts that our girl kind of ovaries up. And because she, like, just runs right in her bare feet.
Yeah, she's baller at this moment.
Yeah, she stepped up.
But she's too late. She gets to the door. There's a lady, which Okay.
Is his mom?
Is it his mom?
It's his mom, because he's like, what the fuck, mom?
Yeah, like after he sees her.
Because that's even so much worse.
Yeah,
because she's naked. Like, okay, so she's knocking on the door. What's her name? Our girl, Jay, breaks into the house.
And she's like,
don't
answer.
open. But he fucking does. And this thing that looks like his mom jumps him and then starts raping him. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah. And he's just like...
And he's all dead. Kind of like...
So that's the thing, too. That's the first time we realized that the sex ghost fucks you.
Yeah, it rapes
I thought
you,
it just fucking mauls you and fucks your body
so that's
out. I thought it
also, like, when it
you,
grabs her hair, like...
It's flirting?
It's... No. But I just mean, like, it's not like it touches your skin and you're like... I mean, like, it has to have sex with your body. So I think it wasn't flirting, but I think it was getting ready to fully grab her when she was like, what the hell?
But it was just kind of playing with her.
Yeah. I think it's I mean, it turns into people that you love to fuck with you. Yeah, like, he doesn't need to fuck him as his mom.
Yeah, right.
That's incredibly gross.
Right.
Ugh.
Well, then she runs.
She's sad. She runs away. Of course.
Yeah.
Where does she run? She runs
into the woods and she falls asleep on top of her car. And she wakes up in the morning and she goes to another lake and she goes to the front of the lake, takes her clothes off, and swims into the lake. Well, and we don't see what happens, but she has sex with the guys on the boat.
Oh, can I tell you a secret? I didn't even pick up on that. I was like, why is she going into the water?
Yeah, she sees the guys and she has an idea.
Dumb. I was too upsetting for me to entertain. But yeah.
Which also
but then also
gross because you're
only one of them.
A woman with a broken wrist swimming out to your boat. You're gonna pick her up and she's like been crying and you're just gonna be like, cool, yeah, let's do this thing.
And then this gets back to the logistics of it. So if she fucks all three of them,
one of them gets it.
I think.
Did she go in? Because her cast was still mostly intact.
No,
it was
It's all wet.
We see her later and all her hair is wet and stuff.
Her hair's wet.
Right.
I'm such a dumbass.
And it's like kind of time-lapsey or whatever of her just like crying. And then by the end, she's like, she can't even cry anymore. There's just tears streaming down her face, but she's not even heaving. And it's like a very real moment because once you've cried for so long, you just can't even cry anymore.
Poor fucking girl.
Yeah, she becomes so desensitized. Then she fucks Paul later. It's just not to jump it, but like it's just so... I guess I'll do this now.
Well, see, but during that sex scene with Paul, I was like, well, she's really doing the sex.
Yeah, but
him.
like,
Paul wasn't doing shit.
Not with enthusiasm. Right. Yeah, I was like, Paul is terrible in bed.
Of course he is. He's Paul.
He's fucking Paul. Do you think
Paul is terrible?
Do you think Paul is a virgin though? Maybe.
Yes. I think he lost his virginity a la sex ghost.
Gross. That sucks.
Allah, but yeah.
Well, but he deserves it.
I don't know if that was the right use of Allah. It was the right use
of sex ghost. It was the right use of sex ghost.
Anyway, we get this scene. She is asleep, and Paul comes in and talks to her, and he's basically like making it once again all about his boner. And he's like, "Why didn't you choose me to fuck? I liked you too." And she's like, "We learned that she had slept with Greg in high school, and she thought he could handle it.
Right? She was like, it wasn't a big deal."
And this I liked because he was like, "I just want to help," and she goes, "Do you?" And I was like, "This is the only acknowledgement we get that Paul is just like." In it for Paul's dick.
Yeah, that is good. Do you, or do you just want to sleep with me, be another person who sleeps with me?
Right. But then Paul has an idea. I don't understand the idea fully.
So he doesn't go through with the idea, I don't think.
No, it doesn't work.
When he gets in the car and drives?
No. When he's like, let's go to the pool.
Oh, so this killed me because... So this is where I think it came to fruition. It's slow, but it's not dumb.
Yeah, it's not going to get in the fucking pool.
It's not going to get in the fucking pool. But then it ends up in the pool... And they don't electrocute it.
Because he's already thrown all the shit in.
It hasn't worked.
Yeah.
But it's unplugged. All the stuff was unplugged.
Let's establish what they've done real quick.
Yeah.
They go to this pool, this big pool, and they set up all these like electronics and stuff.
How did they get in? There are so many questions.
Where are the it's also like a magical world that isn't real. So presumably they're gonna like use her as bait in the pool. It's gonna get in the pool and they're gonna throw the shit in and electrocute it. Which if a gun shot to the head did not kill it, I don't understand.
I don't think electrocution is gonna work.
Right. I don't get that.
Oh, but mixed with chlorine? No, I have no idea.
You are a sex ghostologist.
Yeah, sex ghostologist.
But so they do this, they set up the whole thing. She gets in the pool, eventually the creature shows up, and then Paul's like shooting it. He accidentally shoots Yara in the leg. Fucking Paul.
Poor Yara.
This was a cool scene though. I was like, pools are beautiful to see. This movie already is visually very beautiful in terms of its colorization, and pools with the rippling blue water are really
and the
gorgeous.
Building across with the dark sky backdrop is really beautiful. It looked like, I assume, a set. I think that outside was a set.
Probably.
It looks great, though. It looks stunning.
They do film in Detroit a lot. because of taxes.
No, I mean like a model.
Oh,
it looked like Tim Burton-esque.
Yeah, like Beetlejuice
with like the big backdrop and the iconic Gothic building.
It also reminded me of Ghostbusters.
Yes.
When it's like the storm is coming over the
Empire State Building.
Yeah. It's very beautiful. But pick up where we left off. Paul's a shooting. The creature falls into the pool and it grabs our girl by the leg and it's like pulling her under, and then Paul shoots it. He gets a lucky shot in because he can't see it. Yeah, right through the head. She gets out of the pool and then the pool is filled with billowing blood. Yeah. So it's like, is it dead?
Yeah. So this, of course, made me think of Pray at Night, because that is why I asked when we were talking about Pray at Night, would you jump in a pool to evade a killer? If like there was a pool near you and someone was trying to kill you, would you jump in the pool and be like, now it's harder for you to kill me?
I am not a strong swimmer, so I would think no. But
well, and I was wondering throughout the movie, is that like the airplane? Is that another out? Would it walk through the water? I assume it would.
I thought about that too, especially when she was swimming on the lake.
Right? Could she just keep paddling out a bit?
Yeah, because I'm sure you can walk as far as it can reach.
And then it's like a shitty swimmer.
But then maybe it just gets very tall. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Or it literally is like the creatures in the like Titanic people in Ghostbusters who emerge from the water with like their, you know what I'm talking about? The ghosts from Titanic who walk from out of the water and they start eyeballs first and then but they're not. That's when it shifts to
the tall guy.
It goes from like little boy to Yara to
it's the little boy, but he has ghost swimmies. And they're all like, oh.
Yeah.
So blood billows.
And then we cut to a shot of fucking Paul.
And he's victorious.
Literally.
I was so mad. I was like, I cannot believe Paul gets fucked.
And he ends up with the girl. They hold hands.
That was what upset me more than anything. Because I was like, okay, maybe it's like an experiment to see if the ghost is really dead. Will it come for Paul? Which is like noble of him, I guess. But also, no, he just wants to fuck. But then later, we also see Paul go and look at hookers. Like, he's nervous. Like, he goes, I'm sorry, sex workers. We see Paul go and look at some sex workers. God.
Fight the matriarchy.
Some sex workers, and so he's clearly, maybe he sleeps with them.
But why doesn't he sleep with them?
Why? Literally, this is what my boyfriend said. He goes, here's what I would do. I'd go find a sex worker. I'd pay them to have sex, and then say, I'm going to pay you to have sex with her or him, and you to have sex with him. Like, pay the money to pay it down the road and buy me, like, a good month. And then that person fucks someone. Yeah. And then that starts that chain. Like, there's an out.
Well, okay. It is a little bit like The Ring, and we've talked about the moral dilemma of The Ring. So in order to survive, you have to pass it on.
Oh, sure.
Like, in order to survive The Ring, you have to make a copy, but not only make a copy, you have to show it to someone.
You have to give it to someone. Like,
so you're giving someone a death sentence. So, like... Right.
But it doesn't spread in the way that The Ring spreads.
No, it just goes one forward. Mm-hmm. I would kill myself. I know that's been the answer to every single movie we've talked about.
Well, that's...
Every movie we've talked about, Tom, it's been like, if there's a killer chasing me, I will throw myself off a bridge.
But that's sort of a theme of the movie, though, because Yara...
I'm just going to sit quietly.
What am I going to
do? I don't know. Fight it.
Yara reads a quote from her Dostoevsky about how when there's disaster approaching, there's a temptation to just sit and wait for it to come. Yeah. There's a lot
which the girl does in the beginning.
Exactly. And there's a lot, like, eventually I think these people do get tired of fighting it, and there's there is an inevitability to this. And there's also a quote about, like, the certainty of death. And in fact, that quote about how death is always certain and that's why it's so terrible is what leads us into the final shot of Paul and Jay holding hands, which is what upset me more than anything. I was like, no. Now she's his girlfriend. But she also was kind of twitching her fingers uncomfortably, like doesn't really want to be holding his hand, it seems. But we see that, and then we see, like, a figure sort of behind them.
Yeah. Sort of. It's kept in total blur.
Mm-hmm. And it's a neighbor. It's a neighbor that we've seen before. Right. It was the neighbor that was washing his car. So it's like, that could just be a dude in the neighborhood. Or it's it.
And we don't know.
But here's the problem with their plan. Now they can both see it. So how will they know? Because you can't.
I mean,
like,
you know when it's sex ghost and when it's not sex ghost. You know it's like fucking weird. It's got those eyes and it's like a naked grandmother.
It never talks.
You're like, hey, do you see that naked grandma coming over here?
And he's like, sorry, she's off her meds. Yeah, that's my grandmother. Grandma, come here.
Put your clothes on.
Hey, shut up! I went through the war.
What war? We don't know.
We don't know.
When does this take place?
When does this take place?
All right, well.
So it's very unsettling, ambiguous. I feel ambivalent. Ending.
Yes. Well, do you feel ambivalent? Let's talk about the ratings.
Do you like it? Yeah, because before we started, I was like, oh, it's really, and you were like, oh, I'll get into it.
I needed to talk through it because I like it better having talked through it. But let me explain to Tom what we do. We do a rating system where we do 1 to 5 stars, which is like classic Netflix. Is it a good movie or not? And then 1 to 5 scream face emojis. So how scary is it?
Cool.
And they don't necessarily bear on one another. So I'm going to give it 4 stars. I'm almost gave it a 3, and here's why. There's some pacing issues that I felt. There's some I know, Callie, I know you love the music. There were times when I felt it was somewhat distracting. The acting is not the greatest acting I've ever seen. But the big thing for me is that Jay, as a protagonist, is not very active. And she doesn't get to do a lot of things. Like, everything, with the exception of going to find Hugh, which is her idea, and going after Greg when she sees the creature. Everything else is sort of happening to her, usually is being done to her by men.
Is that intentional? I mean, that's probably intentional. Although a male director, so...
Right. It's a male director and writer, and she just... I never got a real sense of who Jay was as a person, other than just scared and victimized all the time. Which I think in some ways is a very apropos commentary about these sort of heteronormative, patriarchal values that, we're projecting onto her, this idea of body shame.
Right.
But I just couldn't get past it. As a woman watching this movie, I was like, who is this girl? Like, can something happen? Even the idea at the end is Paul's idea. The idea to electrocute the ghost. So I was disappointed in that.
Do you
have
trust
to say.
me?
No, Paul.
Not really, Paul.
I don't trust you, you creepo.
Not really.
So, and I don't think the movie really wanted us to be on Paul's side. I think we were supposed to feel uncomfortable. But I just, I can't get past it. I wanted to know who she was. And meanwhile, she has these 2 great girlfriends, her sister and Yara, who are there with her for no creepy motives, only because they love her. And we barely hear boo from them.
You're right.
Who are they? So I have to give it a 4 for those
In a movie
reasons.
about the patriarchy, or with patriarchal aspects, it was also very patriarchal. Like, well, don't worry about those 2 perfect women who help her the entire time.
Don't worry about the one that we've only referred to as the sister. We don't know her name.
I only know it's Kelly because of the subtitles. Because of the subtitles. But that said...
Oh, that's funny. Really?
Yeah, we always watch the movies with the subtitles.
Yeah.
That said, I think this movie is really fresh and interesting and unpacking a lot of cool things. I think it's visually gorgeous.
Yeah.
And to segue into the scariness thing, I'm going to give it 4 scream emojis as well. A lot of good jump scares, just a general atmosphere of spookitude and dread, and a lot of really creative ways of scaring you with the things that we've talked about that are embarrassing and uncomfortable making.
Yep. All right.
So that's my rating.
Not bad.
Callie, Tom, who wants to go next?
4 stars. Loved it. Mm-hmm. Loved it enough to watch it 6 times in the last 2 years or however long it's been since it came out.
3.5 maybe.
And yeah, I don't know. I just think it's, like you said, I thought it was really fresh. I love dread, and this movie is filled with dread. I love a slow burn, and I thought it was just super scary, and I loved it. I didn't have big issues with Jay. I don't know. I thought she was so pretty.
She was very pretty. I won't argue.
And I give it 4 scream face emojis. I think upon first viewing I would have given it 5, but I've seen it so many times.
Well, first viewing I definitely would have given it 5. I had to go sleep it off, but in the sober light of day.
You tagged out after the cold open.
And I did watch it in the light this time because of that experience.
Right, and you saw it in the mountains, which is always just like in the lake house or whatever. That's always just
very vulnerable.
It was spooky, so
I'm gonna give it, like, for general stars, I want to say 3.5, but no, I think I can give it 4. I get too hung up on rule breaking, but it does pretty damn well with the rules. It does pretty damn well. I disagree a little bit with the acting. I think it's pretty solid acting for a horror film. I didn't find it too campy. I didn't find it too overacted. I thought it was okay. I think I'd give the acting even a decent 4.
Well, you are the actor in this room, so we may defer to you on that.
Yeah, right. I would say it's a solid... I hate to just do 4 again. It just seems too easy. But for the scream mask emojis... Scream mask emojis. I really like the music in this because I think it builds up a knot in your chest. And they do it too much, but they love the build up, cut off music completely. They love the cut off sound and then into a new scene sometimes, or cut off sound and then they turn and there's nothing.
I love the music in this movie.
Yeah, I think the music is used well in this.
I will say I like the music in the scary scenes. It's the interstitial synth. That I found distracting at times. But
I loved it. See, I felt like this movie had, we talked about this a little, like a lot of the throwback elements to it that I really liked, like Halloween John Carpenter, like Pray at Night had, but way better. And it was just different. I don't know. Sex Ghost. Never seen anything like a Sex Ghost.
I'll give it 4s on both because you know what? I give very few things 5s. Like if I were to actually give 5s, I'm like, no, this is a great film. It's really well done. It's got multiple things to discuss and social commentary and whatnot. And very few films are 5s.
Yeah. Well, I really hope this director puts out another movie soon.
Me too. Interesting voice. Fresh voice. Yeah.
For sure. And it has a really high rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it does.
Which I was like, yes, I'm not an idiot for now.
No, you are.
For liking this movie.
Meanwhile, you're talking to yourself while watching the movie and... I am not an idiot.
Reading Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, see, I'm not an idiot.
Yeah. Simon's like, what's that?
What?
Nothing.
I said I'm not an idiot.
What? I said...
I'm talking to Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Oh man. So solid flick all around. I think
watch
we'd say.
It.
Give it a
definitely watch it.
By the way, everyone I've talked to loves this movie.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It did really well. I mean, I remember this being a talked about film.
Yeah, it had like a limited release that then got extended.
Yeah, this guy has like 3 other things on IMDb. It's not.
It's definitely in the last 5 years of like. There's a few really unique films. It was like this, The Babadook. There was like a few films that people loved that were very new and fresh and clever and you know.
For sure.
Love it. Okay.
All right.
This is why we watch horror movies, folks.
Yeah. Thank you both for having me. This was really a fucking pleasure.
Did we say thanks?
No, I'm saying thank you.
Okay.
I said thank you both. Oh, I inflected as if you had thanked.
You both for having me.
No, it was my pleasure. No, you're the brilliant actresses. No, please stop. You're the geniuses of your time.
I'm gonna watch your movie called Found Footage 3D.
No, it was an honor for me.
Tom, thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here. Honorary Scream Girl forever. Everybody go watch Found Footage 3D.
Watch Found
It is properly scary, too, in the moments that are scary. It's one of the few things I love of things I've done. I think you guys will love it.
What's the network again that it's on?
Oh, you can watch it on... if you caught it during... when it was in New York and LA and Chicago for a while, and then it's now on Shudder. Shudder.
Shudder.
Or iTunes. You can buy it on iTunes.
Do it. We don't know what we're going to watch yet next week. We'll let you know on our social channels, which you can follow us on at ScreamGirlsPod on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, or email us at screamgirlspodcast@gmail.com if you have any suggestions for movies to watch. And that's all I got.
Yeah, that's it. Tune in next time.
Watch out for sex ghosts.
Thanks, guys. Bye.